If you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
This has been another episode sponsored by Online Horse College. If you haven't had a look at the wide variety of equine-specific accredited courses, then go to onlinehorsecollege.com and I'll see you over there. Our guest today is Antoinette Foster. Antoinette's one of Australia's most highly qualified equine nutritional therapists. She's also qualified medical herbalist and human nutritionist and author of the successful book, Eat Like a Horse. Antoinette's been a practitioner for over 29 years and continued her training throughout this time. She's a passionate horse owner and rider and plans to return to the dressage arena once again after a very long break from competition, which has further hampered her shoulder injury in last April. And hopefully we'll see her back in the competition ring soon with her warm blood Friedenthal, which she calls coffee. Is that how you pronounce it, Antoinette? Friedenthal?
Yeah, Friedenthal is correct. Yeah, it's actually a German town.
Okay. Antoinette, we normally started with a favourite quote. What's the quote that you'd like to tell us about?
Yeah, my favourite quote actually is, no act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's very important.
Well, I think it's a good one for horses, but it's a good one just for people too, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it sort of, I guess, encourages people to, perhaps be more communicative, but, to maybe help others as well. And, it's a very big community, the horse industry, no matter what discipline that you're in. So I think it's very relevant to both human and animal.
Okay. I'm going to ask you about what an equine nutritional therapist actually does in a minute. But first of all, can you tell me have you always been involved with horses? How did you start with them?
My dad in particular was a horse rider, and he even rode horses, heavens above. I guess he started very young, to be honest. And I suppose really that he introduced me. But my mum also rode too, and I started riding when I was about 5. So I didn't get a pony till I was 11. But so I have been around them for a long time.
Okay. Now, do you have any sort of early memories of having, like with your father or, with your first pony? Or
I can tell you it's probably not the most pleasant of stories, but it does have a funny aspect to it because my dad had the most dry sense of humour, and this pony that I got when I was 11 was a little Shetland pony. I can't actually remember the pony's name, but it was a bit cheeky, and I know on one occasion he wouldn't move, and my dad basically said, look, I'll give him a bit of a push from behind because even though you're not supposed to do that, he said, but we'll do it. He's only small, he can't hurt anyone. So, of course, with that, he kicked him fair and square in the head.
Oh, no.
And whilst it wasn't, that serious, it did obviously cause a bit of an injury, which did require a few stitches. So, but in all of that, he was still laughing, but that was my dad. He thought it was quite funny.
Now, stitches for you or stitches for your pony?
No, for him. No, for him, for my dad.
Oh, well, that's, yeah. I think that's...
So, there's a lesson there too, don't ever get behind a horse and push it because it doesn't, no matter how small the horse is, it can actually still connect with you.
Wow. I can remember seeing a video, you sort of scroll YouTube, see what's happening, and there was a horse in a parade. Now, the horse was going along fantastically. It was in a parade, lots of noise around, lots of people, and someone out of the crowd ran up behind and did something, did like a bit of a tiny little pretend kick. It was nothing to the horse, but of course the horse got a fright and double-barreled him, absolutely fair and square. You just thought, well, mate, you shouldn't have jumped out of the crowd. There was a lot of things that he shouldn't have done.
No, he should have stayed behind the barrier.
Yes,
exactly.
If it stayed behind the barrier's there for a reason. Yeah.
Exactly, it is there for a reason, yeah.
Yep.
My dad, he didn't have a barrier, but anyway, I don't think he ever stood behind a horse and pushed it again after that, so I suppose he learned his lesson.
Okay. Now, you talked about your father. Was there anyone else who's inspired you that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, look, I mean, I have a try at dressage. I love dressage. I really love the classical dressage. I think in some ways it's probably got a little bit lost in translation maybe, but I just loved Rainer Klimke. I thought he was just amazing. I think the most wonderful performance that I ever recall was Rainer Klimke and Anna-Greta Tornbold, actually was her name, in riding Martzong. I can't remember Rainer's horse, but it was just parted to music. And I just remember watching that, thinking, how amazing these horses were. They were just, just natural collection. There was no, literally, like, just the reins were loose and these horses just carried themselves beautifully. And I think he is quite inspirational for a lot of people. And I think I love the European way of riding, more sort of towards that classical style. That's what I really love and respect.
Yeah. Okay, now that's good. Now, what about nutrition, though? You were interested in dressage, say what got you interested in dressage, but what the main thing is, because you're here as an equine nutritionist or equine nutritional therapist, what got you interested in nutrition and in nutritional therapy?
Yeah, I probably became interested when I was maybe about 16, 17, still at school.
Mm-hmm.
I think I just realised that there was a real gap in, the knowledge that people had with nutrition in horses. I actually was going to be a vet, but I changed my mind and I really wanted to sort of go into more complementary therapy. At that time, of course, there were no actual equine nutrition courses. They just didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So I started in human nutrition. So I did a diploma in nutrition. It's quite a while ago now, but I think with the human side under my belt, it did allow me to really adapt and utilise that across into the equine world also. I think that a lot of the courses available today, there's not very many of them to start with, but they're not really detailed enough as far as equine's concerned. So, starting in human nutrition, I think was a great start for me personally.
Okay.
And then, of course, from there I could sort of grow. Yeah.
Yeah. So you sort of start, like someone might start off as a massage therapist, but they've got a horse background and the two come together and they complement. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I just think that for me too, my main objective was I wanted to go down the road of individuality, because I think that gets very much lost. So that's sort of where I kind of shifted a little bit in my studies. Doing nutritional therapy, for example, certainly gives you more of an option there. So, but so that's sort of where I got that interest from, and obviously always passionate about horses as well.
Yeah. So thinking about your role as an equine nutritional therapist, tell us a bit about just the horse health and management. What's some things that we as horse owners, horse people, need to know about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important aspect, I guess, of equine health and management is nutrition, and in my opinion, but I think as far as anyone who's in this field would certainly agree with that. I think what's happened is that it's got a little bit lost along the way, and I tend to find that we spend a lot of money, horse owners spend a lot of money on their horses initially. A lot of horses are very expensive to purchase. Then we have to buy saddles, bridles, we've got to buy rugs, boots, we might have to adjust the horse, whatever it might be. That old saying about the most expensive part is not buying the horse. That's the cheapest part. The rest is actually managing the horse over the time you have the horse. So I think there's a bit too much money spent in areas that don't actually go towards maintaining that health and well-being of the animal. So I believe that nutrition is the king of the mountain, so to speak. I think that without that we have nothing. But it's the same with human health as well. Being a human nutritionist too, there's no difference between human or animal. That nutrition has such an effect on everything in the body. So I do feel that there needs to be more education in the area of nutrition. We're very big on educating. That's sort of always been our biggest drive with my business.
Yep.
And I think that we need to sort of look more to educate people in how to feed their horses in not just the most effective way, but also being a cost-effective way. It's quite surprising that if you feed the horse in the right way, it's actually very cost-effective too, because, feeding horses, it's not rocket science. It's really, really quite simple and basic.
Okay. Have you got some basic rules, like you think about the rules of feeding and, they're very UK-based, UK-orientated. We talk about 8 rules of feeding that sort of get digested into 10 or 12, or depending on what book you read or who you listen to. But tell us some of the most important rules that you think for people to take away.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing is to remember or remind ourselves that the key to a healthy digestive system is a high roughage diet.
Mm-hmm.
And I do find, look, I've obviously we have a lot to do with international horses as well. You know, I do a lot of travel. I've done a lot of seminars internationally, etc. And it's a worldwide phenomenon that the average horse is not fed enough roughage.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, roughage, by that I mean it can be in the form of chaff, yes,
Yep.
but generally speaking, you know, it's in the form of hays. And pasture, of course, falls in that category. A lot of people forget to include that, you know, in their feed regime, because pasture, whilst at the moment in lots of areas it's very poor, but grazing is so important for horses because, you know, they are herbivores, they're perpetual grazing animals. They really require not just, I guess, the intake, but it's also related to the mental state of mind of the horse too, you know, so that the roughage becomes important in the form of pasture is vital. For those horses that don't have access to pasture, then we have to find a way to literally mimic that, so provide them plenty of hay to sort of bridge that gap, you know, where there isn't pasture. So, you know, roughage really is the most important part, I believe, of a horse's diet, because it certainly will maintain a healthy digestive system. And, of course, without that, we have all sorts of problems.
Yep.
So that would be my number one rule.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would be the most important part, I think.
Wait, can you hear anything? No? That's because we're waiting for someone with a good quality horse product to be advertised here. If that's you, then contact us, horsechats@horsechats.com, and we'll send you the details. Thanks.
I think the most important thing is to get the balance right. So we know that horses need a really good level of roughage. We know that they need protein, they need energy, they also need vitamins and minerals, they need water, you know, they need fat. So we know they need all of that. And it's just about, I always think if you're a bit confused about feeding, that you always get professional advice, because that's going to put you on the right track. And it's never a reflection on them as horse owners. You know, we don't expect everyone to be a nutritionist. And we're people like myself and my staff, you know, we're here to help. You know, we're all practitioners here, so we're here to help people. And that's really, we try and sort of set them on the right path, you know. And I think once they understand that, it's also very easy for them to manage it too.
Okay. Now, I'm going to read a quote from you, and it's one of my most favourite topics is the gut microbiome. This has such a massive impact on the horse's long-term health. The digestive system of the horse can be very sensitive. Can you tell us a bit more about that, how important it is?
Yeah, for sure. The equine intestinal tract contains quite a complex microbial population, and that's actually called microbiota. And that plays a massive role in health and disease. So the microbiome, which is basically a collection of the microbiota, and it also is a collection of, in simple terms, good and bad bacteria contained in the gut. And it also appears that the microbiome, it can actually be altered quite intensely in certain disease states. So, for example, laminitis is one. It can be a very severe disease, we know. And we know it can also be set off sometimes by an increase in dietary starch, for example. So by the time that starch reaches the hindgut, it causes an enhancement of lactic acid bacteria, and that lactate build-up and acidification of the contents of the gut. So the gut microbiome, so you understand there's not a lot of studies in the equine world on the gut microbiome. There's a lot in the human health side, but even in the studies in the human microbiome, is still quite in its early stage. You know, we have discovered a certain amount of bacteria contained in the equine and human gut. We know that there's a direct connection between the gut microbiome and the gut-brain axis. We know that the gut microbiome, and again, in simple terms, this is the digestive system and the digestive process we're talking about, has an impact also on skin health, on immune function. So we know, you know, in the human world that that's the case. And we would be a bit stupid to consider that that's not the case with horses, especially when we look at how sensitive, you know, the equine digestive system is. It's not a very practical sort of setup. You know, I often say whoever developed or designed the equine digestive system was probably on drugs, because it's really, it doesn't function very well if particularly the horses are being fed types of feed that are just not suited to the species, and that is a very common thing that happens.
Mm-hmm.
So the gut microbiome really does control all of that, and what we try to do is influence the health of the gut microbiome by providing a really good, well-balanced diet. And that's also where that high roughage diet plays a massive role, because the higher the roughage diet, of course, the less lactic acid bacterial build-up that you have, and that's a really significant factor too in managing the health of the gut microbiome. There's a lot more studies, sort of coming. We as a company are looking, we start some clinical trials in a different area of the gut microbiome this year, but we are also looking at the gut microbiome and clinical studies on the list, hopefully towards the end of the year. Mm-hmm. We do currently do gut microbiome testing. So that's actually a DNA sequencing technology, and we do that also through our company, and we can test any species. So, I do humans as well as horses and the occasional dog.
Yep.
In fact.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
yep.
Yeah, does that explain it? So, I mean, the gut microbiome really is essential for normal health and well-being, and really the function of the equine intestinal system as a whole really is governed by what sort of a balance there is in that microbiome at any given time. And it's also very sensitive to diet change and gastrointestinal disease.
Okay.
So, we know that, again, with a high roughage diet, we're also going to be reducing the risk of diseases like ulcers and colic and diarrhea. And we know very well that colic is the biggest killer of horses worldwide.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, talking about the difficulty of getting the nutrition aspect right, but you talked about what type of things are fed to horses that don't agree with their digestive system. What sort of things shouldn't we be feeding that people may be unaware of? And, that everyone wants to do the right thing by their horse, but sometimes there are things being done that people just don't realise.
I think so too. And again, like I said before, it doesn't reflect on their ability as a horse person. It's not that at all. We all love our horses and we want to try and do the right thing by them. But I think the biggest concern is that the feed industry is actually not regulated, not in Australia anyway. And so that doesn't sort of bode well, I think, for people also wanting to research more about what exactly is contained in a bag of premix or pelletized feed, for example. Also, there are a lot of byproducts used in the stock feed industry in general, and this includes things like bran, pollard. It includes things like soybean hull, soybean meal, which is downgraded for stock feed purposes, copra meal, beet pulp products. These are all really termed as byproducts because they're actually originally waste products which have been, utilised to use in certain types of feed. And also what is used very commonly is whey powder. And I mean, we go back to what I said before about horses being, they're strict herbivores. To feed a horse a dairy byproduct is obviously not something that I would recommend as a practitioner, because they simply cannot digest and utilise milk products. And fish protein is another one that has, popped up from time to time, being used in various products and feeds as well. And again, same sort of scenario. So there are a lot of products that are used that really, if you look at the horse's anatomy and physiology is not changed. And they have evolved to eat only one way. I think what's happened over the last 45 odd years is that the feed industry has certainly found ways of, utilising ingredients to get the specifications that they need to meet the horse's requirements. But unfortunately, the way that that's done is that, generally speaking, those ingredients being used really are not suitable to feed to a horse. So I think that's where it gets very confusing for people, because marketing is a very powerful thing. And also, who do you believe? Who do you believe? I think it's very difficult for horse owners, because who do you actually have confidence in? Who do you believe? Who's telling you the truth? But the cold, hard fact that the anatomy and physiology of the horse is the way it is, and it is a strict herbivore, and it has evolved to eat only one way.
Yeah, definitely. Just tell us then, because we're learning about what not to feed. Can you talk about an ideal diet for a horse?
Yeah, I mean, I think very importantly, an ideal diet is one that you can adjust, or when I say adjust, as much as you are required to do. And of course, we also have to remember that there's lots of varying factors that will have a bearing on what we will feed our horses. So it can be the breed of the horse, the age of the horse, where the horses work, where the horse lives, the type of pasture available, etc. I think the best way to feed a horse really is to feed something that they can actually probably mix their own, or if there is actually a couple of products in the market that certainly are what I would term as a natural diet that don't contain any byproducts or molasses or salt or anything else like that. But obviously two chaffs, grains, preferably maybe oats, which a lot of people don't realise can actually be fed whole, because oats are, in fact, the only grain that you can feed whole. What's nice about oats is they're actually quite low in starch, a bit lower in protein than your other grains, and also they're very readily digested by the horse. But they are lower in those probably pretty important factors. But the beautiful part, being able to feed them whole, is great. I love oats personally. I will recommend that to someone who has a horse that does require more energy, for example. That's a good one to go. And barley is quite good too, steam and rolled barley, crushed, crimped, whatever. Probably steam and rolled is my preferable way to feed barley. So those two grains really are the only grains you probably would ever need with a performance horse, to be honest. And then maybe just including your two chaffs. A good supplement, good daily supplement is very important. And then obviously your hay and pasture. So you can see it's quite simple. And as I said, there is a couple of companies, one in particular, that does produce a feed that is an all-natural long stem fibre pellet, which is really great, and that can actually be, sort of utilised in combination with a daily formula. So the rest out there, they're basically a processed pellet, so they are powdered before they're produced. And when we look at the horses, again, the digestive process, the horse, the first port of call or first point of contact is the mouth, of course, and when they take food into the mouth, they have a unique grinding, a scissor jaw action, which is unique to the species, how they chew and grind the feed. And very importantly, we have to make sure that what we are providing the horse is actually encouraging and stimulating that normal process, and in turn that normal enzymatic action, so they do start to produce that saliva. Because if we don't do that, then we interrupt that process at the very beginning of that whole long time-consuming digestive process till it reaches the hindgut for fermentation. Yeah. So to me, simplicity is the way to go. It's what we've always educated people to do. It's also very cost effective for people, but it's also very controllable too. And it's quite simple, and it's extremely effective and highly beneficial for the horse.
Yep. Okay. Now, just going back to the additives, sometimes we just talk about feeding electrolytes. What other additives?
Okay. I mean, am I able to talk about high form products, or is that
I think I think if that's relevant, then tell us what's in the high form products and tell us but why? Why? Yeah. Sure.
Look, we know there's lots and lots of supplements in the marketplace, and we know that there's lots and lots of feeds, and we know that, I think we do lots and lots of equine profiling here, and we always go straight to what the client is feeding their horse, because it's amazing how much you can gain from that, and what kind of effect that has on the health of the horse, just looking at what they're being fed. So that's the number one thing, as I said, nutrition is sort of where it starts. And I think when you're looking at all these products in the marketplace, they do contain ingredients that, they're industrial tech grade, feed grade. They're not fit for human consumption. My theory's always been the same, which is probably why I started High Form back in 1990, was that I just believe that the horse's health and well-being is as important as ours, because why shouldn't it be? And if it's a dog, same thing. If it's a cat, doesn't matter. Why would we be giving them a poorer form ingredient when we're not going to ever consume something like that ourselves? In actual fact, it might make us quite unwell if we did. So always from day one, I really wanted to go down that road of providing the animal with really high quality human grade, oral grade ingredients which are suitable for human consumption. So that's, to me, I think that's the number one criteria, and that's certainly what we've adopted with High Form from the very first time we produced our very first product. So that's the first thing. And when you're looking at products in general, we are very different, A, because we do that, but B, because we also use mineral tissue salts, which date back, they used that back to the 1800s, based on a Dr. Wilhelm Schussler. Well, I suppose he wasn't a doctor, Wilhelm Schussler is like a modern-day naturopath. And mineral salts are what are found in the body ash. So they're very compatible to the animal and human body. And their use was, as I said, developed by Wilhelm Schussler. And then it was adopted by a company in the UK called Martin and Pleasance, who are also based here in Australia. There are 12 mineral salts, and they all have the most amazing properties about them. So we made the choice all those years ago to actually use these mineral salts rather than using a simple, poorly absorbed mineral, in which case you've got to feed a lot more, because these mineral salts are mineral complexes. They're almost bordering on being homeopathic. You just don't need very much of them. And they have, as I said, the most amazing properties. So we went that way with our minerals, and we actually use, for example, organic certified herb extracts rather than your teabag cut powdered herbs, which are all certified. They're all certified organic. They all come out of Germany, and that's where the regulations are very, very strict. So our products are very unique. The dose rates are very low, and what we've tried to do, is allow that adjustability so that when you put your feed together, you then obviously add the formula in to take up the slack. I always believe that vitamin mineral formulas are used they're like the supporting actor or actress. So they support what you're feeding the horse rather than the other way around. So we use the formulas to top up those areas of deficiencies that might be there.
Okay.
Yeah, so we started work last year with the Moolameen Grain Co-op, who are based in Moolameen, but their head office is in Swan Hill. I don't know if you know of them, but they're actually a cooperative of about 170 farmers. And we worked with them because I formulate all of the high form products, and we worked together with them with a concept of actually creating a feed that could be used in conjunction with our high form daily supplements. And that's what we've done. And that's allowed us to have that adjustability and almost get close to it being pretty close to perfect, So it's quite amazing that we've been able to achieve that. And it's only been available for a very short time, but we've had the most wonderful feedback, and I feel very humbled to be involved with such a wonderful company too.
Good. And as you say, you talked earlier about how expensive or how we can save money and make feeding more economical, but I think you've pretty much gone through that, Yeah,
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, as I said, it's the whole thing about it is that, I always think inside equals outside health as it does with human health. And very importantly, I always try to get my horse owners, trainers, riders to be a bit more observant so that, rather than just go out there and get their horse and brush them, put the saddle on and ride them, then unsaddle them and wash them and put them away, is to maybe occasionally, like I did just recently for an article I wrote, I actually observed my horse for a full day to see how long he spent grazing and how long he spent resting. And it was interesting because he spent out of 7 hours, 2.5 hours resting, and the rest of the time was grazing. So, these sorts of things. Just really when you have more knowledge of your own horse, I think you also notice things that might just happen that maybe if you didn't have that knowledge that you might miss something. And I think it also, I feel, gets you a little bit closer to your horse too. It might sound silly, but I think they work a lot off their emotions like we do, and they also read us that way very often. I think never get on a horse when you're angry.
Oh, definitely.
Because it could end in disaster. Yeah.
If you're an equestrian coach or a horse riding instructor, or even if you aspire to be one, have a look at the free video series for horse riding instructors on the Horse Chats website. Go there now. Have a look. horsechats.com.
Now, we talked earlier, because you were going to explain, just in a nutshell, because people have heard you talking, we're sort of coming towards the end, but if you were to explain to someone what an equine nutritional therapist does, how would you explain that as a career path?
Okay, well, I think really quite simply we use nutrition as our medicine, our form of medicine. I think we look obviously at holistically treating the horse. We look at, treating the patient, not the disease. We treat the cause, not the symptoms. We treat them as individuals. I think very importantly that we try to ensure that our therapy comfortably conforms to the principles, I guess, we believe in, and we've become involved in examining all aspects of the horse's life.
Yep.
And that way we can really assess them in a very broad way. And I think we can successfully provide the correct advice, nutrition advice. And outside that too, we obviously go a step further, and that is that beyond nutrition, there's also recommendations of other practitioners like body workers, acupuncturists, massage therapists, etc., because very often that's something that is very complementary to what we do as well. Making sure you've got a really highly qualified equine dentist, etc., really great vets, all these things, good farrier. They all are, I guess, a collection. And at the end of the day, nutrition tends to drive the whole machine, I think.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. No, that's good. That's good. All right. Now, have you got a book that you could recommend to our listeners?
Yeah, look, I do. I think one of the best books, and I often recommend this to people who ask me, it's a book called Equine Clinical Nutrition, and it's by Lon D. Lewis, who's actually a veterinary nutritionist, which is very rare to find someone who has the most amazing knowledge in nutrition but is also a vet. He's an American-based vet, and I think it's a particularly good book. The reason why I like it is because it's a little bit more individualised. It's more up my alley, because I think what does get lost both in human and animal nutrition is to lose that individuality, that we are genetically different to the person next to us, or the horse standing next to the horse next to them, for example. So I think that individuality, and that's certainly the way I have always approached nutrition with horses, and I think it's the only way to do it. So, yeah, I think it's a very good book, personally.
And remember, you can find all the books recommended by our guests at horsechats.com/books. You can have a look at the guest page for the individual book they recommended, or just look at the recommended books by order of popularity at horsechats.com/books. Okay. What are you looking forward to now?
I think for me, apart from, getting back into riding once I get over my nervousness from my fall, for me, it's developing new products, definitely working a bit more closely with Melamine Grain and supporting our brand ambassador. Harry's Choice is the feed, the brand of feed, and Harry Coffey is our brand ambassador, who is a jockey from country Victoria. Could be someone that might be worth interviewing for you too. Most amazing young man. He has cystic fibrosis, and he, as you probably appreciate, jockeys have to be extraordinarily fit. But we are linked with cystic fibrosis, so every bag of feed sold, 50 cents is donated to cystic fibrosis. So we'd like to sort of do a bit more work with cystic fibrosis in Victoria, and, in our small way, try to help find a cure. That would be great. Obviously doing more clinical studies. This year we have a fabulous vet who's heading up our trials. It's taken 4 years to get to this point. There's a lot of work involved in setting this up. And we are registered for research and development in Australia, so have been for, as I said, 4 years.
All right. Can you sum up your philosophy now? Just equine nutrition, just something that people can take away with. You might just take a couple of sentences to sum it up.
I guess where we come from is sort of looking more at the philosophy of natural therapy, because natural therapy encompasses so many things, but it's something that we really hold dearly, and getting the nutrition correct is so important because it impacts on everything in the body. I think that's probably the most important thing that I would say. Yeah, I think so. Just that if we can try to get the nutrition side correct, then we are going to have less problems with our horse, and that means less visits from the vet and all sorts of things. Complaints, though, from farriers because their feet are growing too quickly, but that's a good thing. Yeah, I think so. I think because we sort of work under the umbrella of the philosophy of natural therapy in general. Okay.
All right. No, that's good. That's good. Now, Antoinette, how can people contact you?
Yeah, the best telephone number is 039775 6422.
Yep.
And we have a 1300 number, which is 1300 HIFORM, HIFORM. And then the best email is ENQ, which is short for inquiries, at HIFORM, HIFORM.com.au.
Okay, brilliant. The other thing is too that those details will be available just in case people don't have a pen on them, can't take those details straight away. They'll be on horsechats.com/Antoinette Foster, or else just go to horsechats.com and search for Antoinette and you'll find the contact details. Okay, Antoinette, thank you for talking to us today. You've brought in knowledge from a different area again, just something that's come in. I think, the more knowledge we can get, I have a training organisation and my passion is education. So, I think all the knowledge that you're bringing in is it's just all knowledge. And I think the more we find out about horses, how to care for them, how to look after them, talking about ideal diets, but also making them economical, I think that's been very beneficial, Poe. So, thank you.
Oh, no, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Now, if you're still there, you probably know that I'm absolutely passionate about education within the horse industry. That's why I host this podcast. My other venture is Online Horse College. Have a look now at onlinehorsecollege.com and I'll see you over there.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.